Welcome to the news brief. To present it, I'm Hastings Mbozi with headlines. 5 people have been arrested for masquerading as Drug Enforcement Commission, Zambia Revenue Authority, and Zambia Information and Communication Technology Authority officers. Musician David Piri, aka Dave Zambia, has been buried at Leopards Hill Memorial Park in Lusaka. A quick adaptation has enabled Ethiopian Airlines weather through coronavirus restrictions and saved the airline. And now, the news in detail. 5 people have been arrested for masquerading as Drug Enforcement Commission, Zambia Revenue Authority, and Zambia Information and Communication Technology Authority officers. The masqueraders are Donald Chimase, 26, Leon Goma, 25, Kalabachanda, 26, Nicholas Mansa, 25, and 26-year-old Jimmy Sichimba. They were arrested at Lusaka's Carousel shopping mall, where they had gone to demand for money from a Chinese national and the proprietor of a named shop by purporting that they were officers from the DEC, ZRA, and ZICTA. Teresa Katongo, the Drug Enforcement Commission spokesperson, has confirmed the arrest to Loyola News in Lusaka.
We have in Lusaka province arrested 5 people for impersonation of DEC, Zambia Revenue Authority, and Zambia Information and Communication Technology officers. The suspects have been identified as Donald Chimase, Lyson Ngoma, Kalata Chanda, Mwansa Nicholas, and 26-year-old Jimmy Ashley Sichimba. The 5 were picked from Carousel Shopping Mall, where they had gone to demand for money from a Chinese national and proprietor of a named shop by purporting that they were officers from DEC, ZRA, and ZICTA. Initially, these suspects had extorted 30,000 kwacha from the same shop owner and had taken with them 2 laptops, a CCTV server, and control unit. We wish to advise members of the public to always request or demand for an identification card whenever they are approached by any person purporting to be a law enforcement officer. Otherwise, they risk being duped by these unscrupulous people.
Zambia has reduced spending towards projects as a strategic move aimed at restoring debt sustainability. The move has been in place since March, when Zambia reported its first coronavirus cases. While Ng'ando, the finance minister, says up to $1.3 billion has been saved. Dr. Ng'ando, the finance minister, was speaking when he made a presentation to Eurobond creditors. The move is aimed at reducing Zambia's indebtedness and overcome debt distress. But the International Monetary Fund has maintained that preconditions must be made for Zambia's request for financial assistance to be okayed. The first condition is an effective implementation of upfront actions by Zambia, while the other is the design and implementation of an effective debt strategy. Zambia is facing economic stress as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, resulting to the elevation of the public debt to GDP ratio. The Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection has commended government for doubling the allocation towards the social sector in the 2021 national budget. But the center has pointed out that the possibility of achieving the goal will likely to fail because the country will keep borrowing. Chama Mundia, the JCTR Social and Economic Development Program Manager, says Zambia will keep shackling itself in debt at a time when it is struggling to meet its expansion commitment. Ms. Mundia adds that the amount of money the country will be spending on debt repayment is almost double to what government will be spending on education, health, and social protection combined.
Worse off, when you look at our budget, 41% of it is going toward debt repayments. So when we talk about our country struggling with debt, I think some people would argue to say, why are people so concerned talking about debt? Because we've had all this infrastructure. And I think over time and time again, we have emphasized that as the JCTR, as civil society calling for more effective debt management, we're not against borrowing per se, but it's about how you're using it and whether you have the capability to pay back. That debt sustainability issue still comes back. So if 41% of your budget is going toward debt repayments, and then in the same budget you're planning to borrow $2 billion more, it becomes very questionable in terms of how sustainable your plans are in terms of really achieving what you've set out.
Loyola News has discovered that few people are donating blood for fear that they may contract the coronavirus. The danger is that reserves may dwindle unless more donors give the blood. A visit at the Zambia National Blood Transfusion Services at Zambia's highest referral hospital, the University Teaching Hospital, showed that the blood bank needs more donors. Details in the following report.
Blood is a fluid that is constantly circulating, providing the body with nutrition, oxygen, and waste removal. Without blood, the human body cannot function. Blood may sometimes be scarce to find, especially for patients who need it. It can be an accident victim and those with conditions such as severe anemia and leukemia, because blood transfusions are highly recommended in order to have constant supply of blood to the body. The University Teaching Hospitals houses the Zambia National Blood Transfusion Services. This center collects and supplies blood to all hospitals across the country. But the National Blood Transfusion Services Center has faced difficulties during this COVID-19 pandemic. It has seen reduced donors of blood because people think that by donating blood, they could contract the coronavirus. However, the Zambia National Blood Transfusion Services has assured blood donors that it has put in place necessary measures to safeguard would-be donors from contracting the COVID-19.
We are now restricted in terms of how we access our donors. As you know, for countries like Zambia, most of the blood donors are in schools. Access to the schools is restricted. The number of students who are attending classes is also restricted. So in short, there's a barrier that has been created between us and our normal source of blood donors. Workplaces, it's the same. Farms, it's the same. So it's really brought about specific challenges. The demand hasn't changed. It's still the same. But the supply are sort of, facing specific challenges with COVID. The issue of social distancing, for example.
Not all hope is lost.
There was a period where we experienced a lot of accidents and, a lot of people wanted blood. So I just gave myself, okay, let me just donate. Even if I'm not going to donate to someone who is part of my family, but one day I'll save a life.
It is always emphasized that everyone must get to know their blood type, as it is essential in accessing blood in the event of an emergency.
About 50% of Zambians are group O positive, 20% are group B, and 20% group A, and about 10% group AB.
Donors are encouraged to visit the National Blood Bank and donate blood. You may just save a life. Mokasibuku, Loyola News, Lusaka.
The Chisamba District Education Board has reported high attendance levels of pupils in the first 2 weeks of schools reopening after the coronavirus pandemic indefinite closure. Grace Banda, the District Education Board Secretary, says Chisamba has recorded a near 100% of school attendance. Ms. Banda has attributed the high attendance levels to the sensitization programs the district had embarked on prior to reopening. She told Loyola News that the district has not recorded any cases of pupils not returning to school due to pregnancies or marriages.
For Chisamba district, I think we are moving in the right direction because on the first day of opening, we had a good number of learners returning back to school, which is a good sign because we saw them coming in face masks. So we are happy that they've been sensitized, the information they have gotten it correctly, and even in the schools, they have broken them down into sessions because the enrollments are large. So we cannot have like 90 learners in one class. So these classes have been broken into smaller units where more sessions have been created. And they're able to sit like one per desk because the sessions have become many. More of these learners have come back to school. We've not heard of any learners that have gotten married or fallen pregnant during this COVID-19 recess.
A political analyst and researcher says the opposition political parties in Zambia are not giving effective checks and balances to the government. Alex Ngoma, a University of Zambia lecturer, says opposition political parties lack constructive criticism. Dr. Ngoma says some opposition parties opt to oppose everything that the government embarks on without offering any solution.
When you look at the opposition in Zambia, you will see that it has not actually provided what one may call effective checks and balances to the government of that day. And two reasons can actually be cited to explain that development. One is that the opposition in the country is actually very fragmented to a point where there is even a disunity amongst opposition political parties. They disagree on a lot of things. Instead of being united, speaking with one voice and engaging government on the national issues. Secondly, and even more importantly, you will see that in the opposition camp, there are those political parties which appear to have decided to oppose anything and everything that the government of the day does or says. And they do that without actually even attempting to offer alternatives as to how they see things, how they believe things can be better done. So the inclination to offer criticisms without alternatives is what has undermined the political opposition in our country.
Musician David Piri, aka Dave Zambia, has been buried at Leopards Hill Memorial Park in Lusaka. Dave has been described by many musical lovers as a big blow to music, Zambian music. The young talented musician met his fate in a traffic accident on the Chirundu-Kafue Road at Red Paint area as he was returning to Lusaka. He lost control of the motor vehicle, went off the road and overturned, after which the motor vehicle caught fire. 4 other passengers died. Here is a report.
People from all walks of life gathered at the Lusaka Playhouse to celebrate the life of 25-year-old singer David Piri III, popularly known as Dave Zambia. The musician who was driving was severely burnt in a road traffic accident. 3 passengers also died in the accident, while 1 other person, despite having had survived with serious injuries, later died at a hospital. Dave has left an impact on many lives in Zambia because despite his music being hits of all times, videos of him being abused by 2 women surfaced a day after his death. That has become a matter of police interest, but Dave has been celebrated as a fine musician with the best vocals.
I'm into gospel music, but Dave's music, I don't know, I don't love songs they like, but to him it was different. I just had the touch. Maybe it's because of his vocal, but he just impacted. I can't really explain.
Davey was such a young soul, and it's not easy losing a young person. He was so talented. He was part of the Zambian future music.
A send-off ceremony at the Lusaka Playhouse was characterized by stage performances from various artists. The send-off was at times characterized by confusion, mostly from fans and other groups that came by. The Association of Musicians in Zambia is mourning but happy that people from all walks of life have come together to celebrate Dave's life. Tivo Shikapwasha is the Zambia Association of Musicians president.
I think one of the things that Dave managed to do in terms of achievements, as you can see by the outcome here, is he was able to penetrate people's hearts. There's nothing more effective than an artist that can be able to penetrate people's hearts. Because, you know, art is a form of expression. And if people can relate with what your expression is, then, you know, you as an artist is incredible. And that's in itself, you know, is a huge achievement that Dave was able to do. Above and beyond, he's left a huge legacy over a very short amount of time. Dave will go down as one of the greats. You know, tragically so, because a lot of us had a lot of hope for what the future looked like.
Dave has been buried today at Lepers Hill Memorial Park. He may be gone, but his music lives on. Mokasibuku, Loyola News, Lusaka.
When you say I do, baby boy, I am the one for you.
Indeed, he may be gone, but his music lives on. May the souls of the departed rest in peace. And news around the globe. A quick adaptation has enabled Ethiopian Airlines weather through coronavirus restrictions and saved the airline. Despite losing $1 billion and 850 of its employees contracting coronavirus, the company reported a profit of $44 million for the first half of the year and has not defaulted on its loan repayments. A Chief Executive Officer Tiwedi Gebre-Mariam has told the AFP news agency that the company has also avoided laying off full-time employees or requested a restructuring of its debts. The airline, which is the largest in Africa, responded to a 90% drop in international passenger traffic by repurposing 45 passenger jets in order to build out its cargo fleet. Ethiopian Airlines stripped off the seats from its passenger planes to make way for cargo. This worked for the airline as demand for air freight surged during the period. Uganda and Tanzania signed an agreement to build what they say will be the world's largest heated oil pipeline. A $3.5 billion project will run from southwestern Uganda to Dar es Salaam. Uganda authorities say those affected will be compensated, but rights groups worry that few details have been announced. Environmental activists warn the oil project run by French company Total and Chinese company CNOOC also puts Uganda's nature reserves and ecosystems at risk. The Voice of America from Bulisa, Uganda reports.
Ugandan farmer Margaret Kagole says she is still fighting for compensation for land that was taken a decade ago for tapping the country's oil wealth. Kagole was given a payout that she says was not enough, so she is still fighting for over $16,000. Meanwhile, some of her remaining land stands to be taken to build the East African crude oil pipeline, the largest in the region, stretching to Tanzania.
Even this one, I'm not sure that maybe they will come and pay. Now 2 years. So for us as rural people, what do we do?
Presidents Yoweri Museveni and John Magufuli in September signed a deal to build the pipeline, which will cross from southwestern Uganda to Tanzania's port of Tanga. The oil project will be run by French company Total and Chinese company CNOOC. It is not yet clear when construction of the nearly 1,500-kilometer or 900-mile line will begin, but it is expected to take up to 3 years to finish and to displace thousands of people. Few details have been released on the payout, and Ugandan activists worry the oil project could damage Lake Albert and nature reserves.
How are these wells going to impact on the fishing? Because there are spillovers that happen. And when you look at the environmental social impact assessment, it shows you the depth where they pick the oil from, and then they bring it close to the lake. So our point was that why do you have to put a well close to the lake? Can't you use another method?
The Petroleum Authority of Uganda says all locals will be compensated for acquired land before the project begins and at rates determined by land authorities. The Petroleum Authority of Uganda maintains that land has been carefully selected for the refinery and pipeline to ensure nature is protected.
When they're acquiring land, either for the pipeline or the central processing facility, there is provision for a buffer zone. So if we have acquired, let's say, a 30-meter corridor, the pipeline is not going to fill all that corridor. That corridor that's being acquired provides for the pipeline itself and then a buffer on each and every side.
Ugandans here are becoming used to seeing their homes swallowed by seasonal flooding and lakeside erosion. Some, like Kagole, have added oil development to the list of threats to their land. Halima Athmani for VOA News, Bulisa District, Uganda.
And finally, the COVID-19 death toll has climbed to more than 1 million people worldwide. And because of a recent surge of infections in many countries, including in Europe and the United States, more coronavirus deaths are expected in the coming months. But there are also signs that death rates are dropping and people who contract the virus now are faring better than those infected earlier on. VOA now reports.
Although coronavirus deaths continue to climb, experts say there are signs the death rates are falling in some places. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says death certificates show the percentage of deaths due to pneumonia, influenza, or COVID-19 was 6.6% in the week ending on September 19, down from nearly 10% the week before. In Britain, research showed a death rate of 1.5% in August, compared to a rate of more than 6% during the pandemic's peak in April. Martin Landry, professor of medicine at Oxford University, says medical workers also know more about how to treat patients, including with the use of steroids called dexamethasone.
We now know that for those patients on ventilators, you can reduce mortality by a third with a simple, inexpensive, widely available treatment. We didn't know that, we do now. We also know that remdesivir reduces hospital stay, but we don't yet know still whether that actually improves survival. And keeping people out of hospital or reducing their stay in hospital is important, but it's not the key factor. The key factor is, can we save lives?
Landry is a lead investigator of Britain's National Clinical Trial Recovery, which is testing existing drugs in large-scale studies to determine their effectiveness.
Hydroxychloroquine, despite all its previous hype and advocacy and so on, does not work in patients in hospital. We know that lopinavir, ritonavir, so an HIV treatment, widely recommended, widely used, that also doesn't work.
As communities and universities decide on how best to protect against the virus, some experts suggest the COVID-19 is here to stay, just like other viruses. Professor David Heyman sits on the World Health Organization's Strategic and Technical Advisory Group for Infectious Hazards.
At present, it appears that it may become endemic. And if so, then we need to learn to live with this virus as we learned to live with HIV, as we've learned to live with other infectious diseases, most of which have come from the animal kingdom into humans at some time in the past.
Former U.S. Food and Drug Administration's Jesse Goodman is now chief scientist at Georgetown University.
We are going to have an ongoing challenge with COVID. The good news is we know ways to reduce the impact. We know now that social distancing can work. We know now that wearing masks can reduce both the risk to others and the risk to yourself. And we need really consistent public health messaging around this and engagement.
He says that will keep the economies going and avoid going in and out of lockdowns. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
The headlines once again as we end the news. 5 people have been arrested for masquerading as Drug Enforcement Commission, Zambia Revenue Authority, and Zambia Information and Communication Technology Authority officers. The masqueraders were arrested at Lusaka's Carousel shopping mall, where they had gone to demand for money from a Chinese national and the proprietor of a named shop by purporting that they were officers from the DEC, ZRA, and ZICTA. Musician David Piri, aka Dave, Zambia has been buried at Leopards Hill Memorial Park in Lusaka. Death has been described by many music lovers as a big blow to the music industry. The young, talented musician met his fate in a road traffic accident on the Chirundu Kafue Road at Red Point area as he was returning to Lusaka. And finally, a quick adoption has enabled Ethiopian Airlines weather through coronavirus restrictions and has saved the airline. Despite losing $1 billion and 850 of its employees contracting coronavirus, the company reported a profit of $44 million for the first half of the year and has not defaulted on its loan repayments. The company has also avoided laying off full-time employees or requested a restructuring of its debts. That's all that we had for you. On behalf of the entire production team and the news crew at Loyola Television, is pleasant viewing and enjoy the rest of our programming.